Okie dokie, boys and girls. If you want to start training the one arm pull up, well, watch this video because I'm going to be explaining the first progression towards the one arm pull up and some training tips on how to structure your sets and reps and general training mindset as well. But first, let's get started with the progression. So I'm going to assume that you can do about 15 good pull ups. If you can do about 15, maybe a bit less, that's fine too. Then you can basically start training on the one arm pull ups. And the first progression is going to be something called commando pull-ups. And you grab the bar like this, and then you pull up on each side. And basically, this mimics a one-arm pull-up very well. It's still easy. If you can do 15 pull-ups, this will feel quite easy. Perhaps you can get like 10 reps or something. I don't know. It's only a little bit more difficult, but if you watch the one-arm pull-up, you see a bit of a likeness, right? You see that it's a bit of the same pattern. I'm also bending to the side, kind of like in the commando pull-up, right? If I'm doing the one-arm pull-up, I'll go like this. The end position of a commando pull-up is like this. And so that's why it's a very useful exercise. Now, this is the first step, but to be honest, if you can do this progression, you can also start dreaming about the next four progressions, because once you can do your commando pull-up like this, it's only a matter of, removing your thumb, right, and pulling up, and then your pinky finger, your ring finger, your middle finger, right? Eventually, you're only assisting with your index finger, and then you can even move on to the pinky finger as an assistance, right? But you're always making it a little bit more difficult. And so, is this the only progression you need? Well, perhaps. Of course, it's going to be more efficient if you add in some, negatives, if you add in some top holds, if you add in some band assistant reps as well. But when it comes to a first step, these commando pull-ups are very good. Okay, so a couple more details about the commando pull-ups. In general, what you're going to do on these commando pull-ups is you're going to move your head to the side of the hand that's closest to you, right? When you're not moving side to side, but you're doing a sit for strength just on one side, take the hand that's closest to you and move your head towards that one. So the left hand for me at the moment is closest. I'm going to move my hand to the left side. And that's because in the actual one arm pull-up, your hand is going to be close to you as well. You're going to basically be moving your head, your shoulder towards the bar right beside your pulling hand. It's way easier to engage your muscles when your hand is close to you. If your hand is far out, here it's difficult to engage my arm, to engage my lats. It's not balanced, right? Physics are working against you. When you're close to yourself in a one arm pull-up and you can be compact, that's when you can activate your forearms, your biceps, your lats, your chest to rotate towards the arm and stuff like that. So it's going to be way easier. And so to mimic it, you want to do the same in the commando pull-up. I'm going to do a bit of a weighted set here so that you can see an example. All right, so here I did all of my pull-ups towards one side. When I'm doing volume, I'll switch around every rep, but when I do strength sets, I like to keep it at the same side. However, be aware that your other arm is still working, right? My hand closest is working the most, but the hand here, I'm not doing a progression at the moment. I'm just doing the full hand on the bar. So there's quite a lot of power in there. It's getting tired as well. So instead of, doing one set for both sides right after each other, I take a quick break in between and I do my sets separately. Okay, so I'm gonna do 3 more sets, 2 on the right, 1 on the left, and then I'll talk to you about how to structure your sets and reps, in which rep ranges you want to be, and then also a very important mindset and progression tip. So let's go. Okie dokie, so let's talk about how many times you should train a week, sets and reps. And well, when it comes to your training frequency, I would say in general, 2 times a week suits most people. I train personally on Tuesday and Friday. You can choose the days you want, but try to avoid, training 2 times a week and then training 2 days right after each other, for example, Saturday and Sunday. If you have to do it, well, then that's the situation. But ideally, you spread it out throughout the week. So that's about training frequency. If you're doing less training frequency, train harder than what I'm about to explain with the sets and reps. If you do more frequency, well, then make sure that you tone it down a little bit because recovery is the most important part. But when it comes to sets and reps, first I'll explain the reps. I generally train between 3 and 5 reps per set. And this is when I'm, not when I'm training for, endurance, when I'm training for 10 one-arm pull-ups, but when I train for strength, for example, when you're unlocking the one-arm pull-up, you're training for strength. When I try to get better at weighted one-arm pull-up, I'm training for strength. In general, my set will be between 3 and 5 reps. And, this is just a gauge. Sometimes I'll go below, I'll do 2 reps. I generally try to avoid 1 rep maxes unless I want to test my 1 rep max, but sometimes I'll also go above the rep range, in the working sets, but generally between 3 and 5. An example of something I did a couple of weeks ago, or perhaps last week, I was doing weighted one-arm pull-ups, 5 kilos of added weight, and I did 5 sets of 3 reps. And well, that brings me to the amount of sets. Generally, when it comes to working sets, I do about 3 to 5 sets as well. So yeah, 3 and 5, 3 and 5. Basically very easy to remember, but that's usually where I'm at. So perhaps I'll do 3 sets of 5 or I'll do 5 sets of 3. On like heavy volume days, 5 sets of 5. You can also do that, right? When you have the right progression, you're doing more reps, but you would then generally, also decrease the intensity and make the progression easier. For example, do the commando pull-ups or use 4 fingers instead of 3, I don't know, right? Or use a heavier band. If you decrease the intensity, of course, you can do more volume. So 5 sets of 5 would be quite feasible. And when it comes to the intensity, I'm training twice a week. So what I generally try to aim for is to have, you know, ideally 1 rep in reserve at the final set. It doesn't always happen, right? And it doesn't matter too much. Sometimes I'll accidentally go completely to the max, but even if you're going completely to the max on a set of 3 reps, it's a heavy set, right? So even though it's your max amount of reps, you still have quite a lot of power left, and that will allow you to recover. But in general, I would say, especially on the first sets, you need to have a couple reps in reserve, which means even when the set is over, you should feel like you can still do some more reps. And then as the sets go on, especially if you do 5 sets, the later sets are going to feel very difficult. And there, you want to aim between, I guess, 0 and 2 reps in reserve. And then what I often do as well is, aside from those working sets, I will do a finisher set. This is basically if you have the energy, you do a final set at a lower intensity and you do it to the max. And you generally only do 1 set, right? Because this is very heavy on your body, and so it requires a lot of time to recover. But for example, after a regular one-arm pull-up workout, let's say I did 3 reps of 3 sets of 5 one-arm pull-ups. Then after that, I will take a bit of a longer break, right? Perhaps I was resting like 3 to 4 minutes in between each set before. I will take a 5 minute plus break after that and then go back to the bar, perhaps use some assistance to basically reduce the intensity and then do a finisher set. And in those finisher sets, I don't care about the rep range. I just care about doing as many reps as possible. And generally, I end up doing more than 8 reps, 8 reps or 10 reps or perhaps even 12 reps, but a very, well, not very long set, but a longer set, right? And these ones kind of burn the muscle. They give you a good training stimulus. And well, I feel like they really help, like, even though it's more endurance based, they give you a good stimulus as well, as long as you're able to recover, of course. Okay, so lastly, a bit of a tip about the mindset, because, let's say you're training and you're stuck on a progression. I'm gonna tell you why you are not stuck on a progression. It's because there are infinite progressions. You are just not looking at all the progressions available to you yet. So I just mentioned generally you do 3 to 5 sets, 3 to 5 reps, and then a finisher set. That's great, but if you're going into the workout and you're doing the same progression and you're not able to increase the reps, or you're not able to decrease rest time, or you're not able to increase the progression, you're stuck, so to speak. Deviate, right? Because you have infinite progressions. let's say you're doing the commando pull-up and you cannot go to 4 fingers. Well, you can do the commando pull-ups with a kilo of weight added. You can do the commando pull-ups with half a kilo of weight added, or you can just do the commando pull-up and go above 5 reps. You can do a set extra. You can add some volume, right? There are many different ways. Perhaps somewhere in this video I'm showing it, but in today's training I did a couple sets of 20 commando pull-ups. This is nowhere to near the range of strength building, right? It's more endurance based, but I'm getting a sick back pump and I'm getting used to the movement, so I'm gonna be stronger. As long as you have a certain progression, right, and you're doing more than last time, right, you're progressing at something, whether it's volume or the amount of weight that you're doing on a certain progression, or increasing the progression just a little bit, you are making progress, right? So don't get fixated on this one thing you're doing. Let's say you're stuck on 3 sets of 5 with 2 fingers, and that last rep just doesn't get there. Well, perhaps try an easier progression. Try, an extra finger of assistance and try to do a couple reps more in total, right? Just do something, because all that matters at the end of the day, even more than rep ranges and sets and training frequency, is work hard, study well, and eat and sleep plenty. So working hard, that's training, right? Train hard, right? Try to progress at something, like I said, whether it's the volume or the intensity, perhaps even training frequency, I don't know, something. Then study hard, right? When you do a training, generally the next time you will see if you have gotten stronger or not. Learn from that, right? And then eat and sleep plenty. Well, you have to recover. That's the most important part. That one saying from Master Roshi in Dragon Ball is more important than any rep range or progression whatsoever. So make sure you keep that in mind. But anyway, that's gonna be it for today's training. Hope you learned something. I'm gonna head downstairs and have some dinner, and I'll see you tomorrow for a leg day. Is it gonna be a leg day? We'll see.